Perhaps it's not surprising why RVs have become the final rung before someone falls out of the housing system, considering that 67% of Americans, including a significant number with six-figure annual incomes, still live paycheck to paycheck. In recent months, a series of layoffs have pushed millions of people to the brink of financial ruin. As jobs disappeared, rents soared, and credit tightened, many people were forced to move into RVs, vehicles meant for travel, which now became their reluctant refuge. In Los Angeles, long lines of RVs are parked side by side like a metal neighborhood. In Portland, police call them mobile settlements because their numbers are increasing faster than they can be managed. In Denver, many parking lots have become temporary roofs for people who once had stable lives for decades. This crisis is not just a housing story. It's a warning that as the economy changes, the most stable workers are becoming the most vulnerable group. And in this video, you'll see 10 cities where the wave of people living in RVs is booming the most, along with the underlying causes that are pushing millions of American families into a more precarious future than ever before. Are you ready to explore? Let's get started right now. What could be more beautiful than the California dream? Where you can be the shining protagonist in your own life's movie. Where just 1 year of hard work can lay the foundation for a stable life, with a home, a family, and a future. But it seems that scenario is still called the Hollywood dream, while the ending for many real-life main characters is far from happy. California gives the impression that anyone can succeed if they put in the effort. However, today that city is gradually becoming a playground for the elite. Those who hold stocks, real estate, and vast assets. And ordinary people, those who work for a living and once believed that hard work was enough, live in trucks, cars, and RVs parked under overpasses. No longer known solely as the capital of the Hollywood dream, California is now the epicenter of the homelessness crisis in the United States. Approximately 180,000 people are homeless, representing nearly a quarter of the total homeless population in the US, and almost half of the unsheltered homeless nationwide. The extremely high rate of outdoor living means that cars, trucks, and RVs have become temporary homes for many workers, from laborers, drivers, and service employees to even older office workers who have been pushed out of the labor market. In places with a high standard of living like Los Angeles, San Jose, and San Francisco, housing costs have skyrocketed to unbelievable levels. San Jose alone has a median home price of around $1.4 million, and rent for a typical apartment has exceeded $3,000 per month. As apartments became unaffordable, another distorted market emerged. Van lords, renting out dilapidated vehicles and broken RVs to the homeless for up to $1,300 per month. Nearly the same as the rent for proper housing used to be, but in exchange for impermanence, dampness, and instability. The median income in California is around $78,000 per year, making it impossible for someone earning $60,000 to keep up with costs. Someone earning $100,000 still lives paycheck to paycheck, and only those earning over $150,000 can afford to stay in the city. In the marathon race between income and cost of living, wages have long been left behind. However, now layoffs, restructuring, and market cleansing are still happening every day. Although the layoff rate hasn't reached a breaking point, the cuts in key sectors like technology, media, and premium services are creating simmering pressure, resembling a period of transition that is riskier than an absolute stability phase. Income was already not keeping up with expenses, and now it's facing the risk of falling back to square one, all after a single email terminating the contract. Many people might wonder, if it's too expensive, why not move to another state? It sounds simple, but for most residents, it's not an easy choice. They are trapped by work, children in school, elderly parents, and a network of relatives, friends, church, and community. Leaving doesn't guarantee that the new place will truly be cheaper, because the costs of moving, rebuilding their lives, finding new jobs, and losing their social support systems can all plunge them deeper into a cycle of despair, and it's uncertain when they will be able to recover and stabilize. When a state accounts for only about 12% of the population but houses nearly a third of the country's homeless, the question is no longer about individual effort. It touches the structure of an entire development model. And for those living in their vehicles, their biggest fear isn't losing their home, because they've already lost it, but rather losing another unexpected bill. In California right now, the distance between a normal person and a homeless person is now only as long as a mistimed bill. Washington has long been considered a land of intelligence and innovation, a place where technology, education, and knowledge converge to create stable jobs. At least, that's what many people still believe. But as you enter Seattle today, you'll see an unforgettable paradoxical image. People in uniform going to work in the morning, but then quietly opening the door and stepping into an old truck parked in the shadow of an overpass at night, where they live as if they've never had a proper job. Washington is currently the third state in the US with the highest number of homeless people, over 31,000 in 2024, and more than half of them live in King County, the center of Seattle and its surrounding area. That number doesn't just speak to poverty, it reflects a vicious cycle where even those with stable jobs can't keep their heads above water. The average income is much higher than in many other places, but housing costs in Seattle are rising too quickly. Apartment rents have increased by over 70% in over a decade, forcing thousands of people to spend more than 50% of their income on rent. Or worse, their income barely covers the rent. Seattle was once considered a living wage city, but the gap between wages and the cost of living is widening. When apartments become a luxury, many people move into cars, vans, or RVs. The generation gap also became apparent. Millennials and Gen Z look at the median home price of over $900,000 and see a near-closed future, while older generations, those who bought homes before prices exploded, hold too large an asset advantage. However, even a portion of the elderly fall into this cycle. Retirement income is insufficient to live on, unemployment in old age, or declining health leading to increased medical expenses. And amidst that whirlwind is a group of people living in RVs, working during the day and staying in their vehicles at night. Statistically, they are classified as employed, but in terms of quality of life, they are closer to being unemployed than ever before. They exist in a grey area, unprotected by either the welfare system or the labour market, a place where having or not having a job no longer makes a clear difference. If a prosperous city, a major technology hub, still can't provide minimum housing for people who work there every day, then what is economic success being measured by? And as more and more people fall into the state of being working homeless, are the familiar dividing lines, employed or unemployed, middle class or poor, still sufficient to describe the reality of Washington today? Nevada has always been a symbol of neon lights, dazzling casinos, and the feeling that with just one lucky moment, your life could change. But beyond those glittering boulevards, a different reality was unfolding. Not one of lavish card games, but of people betting their very lives on every bill, every week of work. It is estimated that over 7,400 homeless people live in the eastern Las Vegas area, where temperatures above 100 degrees Celsius, 38 degrees Celsius, occur more frequently than the statewide average. The economic structure, heavily reliant on tourism, casinos, and hotels, makes the income of most workers dependent on the number of tourists, tips, and working hours, all of which are immediately cut when the market slows down or businesses tighten costs. Just a few shifts missed, a few weeks of illness, or a slight drop in service industry revenue, and many families immediately fall behind on rent. Rent in Las Vegas has increased significantly since the pandemic, but hourly wages for service workers, servers, housekeepers, security guards, drivers, have not kept pace. In those circumstances, RVs became a lifeline for those who were still working full-time but could no longer afford the costs of an apartment. They cut rent to cover food, gas, and medicine. But the price is living in cramped, extremely hot, low-security spaces with prolonged health risks. At night, the heat trapped inside the RV turned it into an oven. During the day, it was a place they only dared enter when absolutely necessary to rest. In a city built around the concept of chance, the bitter irony is that the very workers who keep it running have to put their lives on the line with every bill. And as extreme heat combines with soaring living costs, the ultimate question becomes more pressing. Is homelessness in Nevada still just a housing story, or has it become a matter of life and death? Oregon was once known as a green, peaceful land, where communities were more secure and the cost of living was more affordable along the West Coast. But in just a few years, that painting changed color. In 2023, the state recorded more than 20,000 people homeless on a statistical night, including about 13,000 people living outdoors, one of the highest rates of homelessness per capita in the United States. More worryingly, the number of homeless people increased by 8.5% in just 1 year. And the strongest increase came from the unsheltered group, who slept in tents, in cars, under awnings, or in RVs that were no longer movable. In Portland, images of rows of old RVs, valves, and cars turning into long houses along industrial routes, under bridges, next to warehouses have become familiar. Many of them are no longer makeshift vehicles, but permanent residences for families pushed out of the housing market. Rental costs increased rapidly, while the supply of low-cost houses did not keep up, causing low and middle income households, especially those without spare assets, to fall into a situation of double up, housing thanks, sharing in an already cramped space. And with just a small financial shock like car repairs, hospital bills, or a few weeks' salary, they can be evicted from their current residence. Younger people struggle with the expensive rental market while salaries don't keep up. Older people, even though they used to be stable, are vulnerable because their pensions can't keep up with inflation. Many different generations share the same feeling of insecurity. With just one wrong step, a lifetime can slip away. When tens of thousands of people in a relatively small state have to live outdoors or in vehicles, is the concept of temporary crisis enough to describe the situation? And if most households cannot withstand a small financial shock, is this an individual failure or an erosion of the resilience of the entire American family economy? Arizona used to be a destination for those who wanted to leave expensive coastal cities to find a more breathable life. But in the past few years, that place that was once considered a good land has been making people worried in a very different way. An estimated 14,200 homeless people were living in Arizona in January 2023, is up nearly 30% from 2020. Phoenix alone used to face the Zone, a homeless encampment of nearly 1,000 people in the heart of the city centre. In 2023, the court ruled that the city would clear the area, forcing hundreds of people to temporarily switch to shelters or drift to vacant, abandoned plots of land, places where media cameras rarely aim. While inclement weather makes living outdoors more difficult, rents in Phoenix are rising so fast that many people working hourly jobs, store clerks, waiters, delivery drivers, workers can't keep up. They don't have enough savings to withstand the financial shock, nor do they have enough room to manage work hours or illness. Therefore, the fear of not having enough rent becomes a common feeling, spanning many generations. Young people just going to work, young families not yet accumulating, and even older people not yet being able to retire in the context of high inflation. So what has changed? A state once considered pleasant, sunny, and affordable now makes people more afraid of rent bills than extreme weather. And when tents and RVs are cleared from the center, are homeless people really disappearing? Or just being pushed out of camera lenses leaving unanswered questions about their path to life. In the memory of many Americans, Texas was once a symbol of a spacious, comfortable lifestyle and breathable. A place with large land, cheap houses, zero personal income tax, and anyone can find a chance to start over. But in just a few short years, that image seems to have receded, giving way to another, harsher reality. Cities like Austin, Dallas, and Houston have seen house prices skyrocket, especially after migration from expensive states like California or New York. What used to be Texas's biggest advantage, cheap living costs, is now just a story of the past. Dallas is currently recorded as the city with the largest scale of homelessness in Texas. The Citizens Committee's 2023 report on homelessness here highlights one simple but cruel thing. As housing affordability declines, the number of people losing their homes increases almost in parallel. House prices are rising faster than wages, making many middle-income workers, drivers, logistics workers, construction workers, and service workers no longer able to maintain an apartment in the inner city. They are forced to drift to the edges, live in RVs, mobile homes, or less regulated areas. A little talked about but deeply influential factor is the collision between newcomer expectations and native reality. Many people move from expensive states that bring higher levels of income and are willing to spend more to rent or buy a home. This unintentionally pushes up the general price level, making long-lived residents who do not own much property or are unlikely to increase their income the hardest hit group. Many traditional Texas families have to leave the neighborhood they've been in for decades because they can't keep up with new prices. If even cost-safety zones like Texas are losing their advantage, where else can ordinary workers go to find a stable life? And how does a state that prides itself on free markets and low taxes face when it is the market and costs that are silently pushing its residents off its roof? New York has long been a symbol of the sleepless pace of life, of glamour, of opportunities that people believe can be touched with just enough hard work. But behind that bright surface, a completely different reality is gradually emerging. Even people who earn $100,000 per year, an income that was once considered enough to live well, are struggling every month as if they are waiting for a bailout that never comes. Statewide, the number of homeless people more than doubled from 2022 to 2024 to about 158,000, making New York the state with the highest homeless-to-population rate in the country. The increase stems from multiple forces at once: escalating rental costs, a post-pandemic eviction backlog, and a massive influx of asylum seekers into the city. In such a context, the saying, "earns 100,000 USD and still doesn't make enough lives," is no longer an exaggeration. In many areas of New York, rent accounts for 50–70% of income, leaving tenants under constant stress. An unexpected hospital charge, a cut in hours, or even a rent increase can also cause them to slide from their already fragile stability. The cost of living, from transportation, insurance, to healthcare, has all increased, making the average high class feel they are standing on the edge of a cliff where just one misstep is enough to make them fall. So if one of the richest cities in the world still leaves tens of thousands of people with a lot of kids sleeping in shelters or makeshifts, then who exactly is economic success serving? And as people making $100,000 a year still feel just a few steps away from homelessness, will the success benchmark that many generations of Americans have come to believe in still retain its meaning in this era? Florida has long been considered America's promised land. Warm sunshine all year round, low taxes, comfortable living costs, and a place many people dream of when they want to retire or find some peace after a lifetime of work. But under that bright sun, another story is spreading. Silently, slowly, but strongly enough to freeze the wallets of hundreds of thousands of people. Across the state's continuum of care, COC areas, reports from 2022 to 2023 show a significant increase in homelessness. Not due to a single factor, but the resonance of rising rents, successive natural disasters, and internal migration. Many people from expensive states move to Florida to find cheaper costs, only to realize the housing market here is already hot, and every pleasant price they hear about seems to be in memory. Counties such as Miami-Dade, Hillsborough, Orange are the most clearly affected. The population is growing faster than the pace of affordable home construction, while rising rents keep making it impossible for hourly wage workers, restaurant, hotel, healthcare, travel service employees to squeeze into the traditional housing market. In a state that regularly faces storms, floods, and rising sea levels, natural disaster risks make the housing picture even more fragile. A big storm can destroy entire coastal neighborhoods, pushing people into the situation of having to live in shelters, motels, or right in old RVs. With home insurance costs rising to record, many households even choose to no more insurance, a reckless but understandable decision when income is not enough to spend on all the swelling fees. On the policy side, Florida is moving in a more pragmatic direction, both trying to leverage federal funds to expand affordable housing and aggressively cleaning up homeless camps to keep the urban order. This approach received both praise and criticism. One side said the state was protecting community safety. The other worried that those moves would only push the homeless away from the public eye, not really help them escape poverty. So, if a place once promoted as a retirement dream now makes young people choose to live in an RV to survive, then who does that dream belong to? And when the policy prioritizes reducing the image of homeless over reducing the number of homeless people, are we improving the reality of, or just editing the surface so that the beach and postcards look better? Tennessee is not the leading state in the homeless statistics, but what is happening in Nashville or Chattanooga leaves a strange feeling, a mild but persistent insecurity, as if something is moving under the surface. The tent city and RV cluster that sprang up near the city centre, lasting for many years before being cleaned up, show a reality that is hard to deny. Many people here have jobs, but still cannot keep one. True home. Old Tent City in Nashville is the most obvious example. It is one of the state's oldest homeless camps, where both tents and aging RVs gather, and where some people have lived for 10, even 20 years. As the city prepares to clean up the area for safety and sanitation reasons, the biggest question lies not in whether the camp will disappear, but where the people in it will go, and what is waiting for them. They are ahead. Because the majority of residents here are not completely unemployed. Many work as seasonal workers, flexible shift work, enough to pay gas, food, some basic living expenses, but not enough to keep a contract rent when the rent increases each year. So when someone with a long work history still has to live in an RV next to the tracks or on the riverbank, can we call it minimalist living option? And when the city clears up a long-term homeless camp without a long-term solution, are we really solving the problem or just moving it to a less visible place? Colorado was once described as one of the most balanced states in America. Beautiful nature, high quality of life, close-knit community, stable economic growth. But those are what make the state slide even more remarkable. Colorado is becoming the place that best exposes the rate of erosion of the middle class, a class of people once considered the backbone of modern America. From 2022 to 2023, the state's total number of homeless people increased by 39%. The number of chronically homeless people increased by 20%. Outdoor homeless people, those sleeping in tents, under bridges, in cars or RVs, increased by up to 50% in just 1 year. The Denver metro area alone recorded nearly 10,000 homeless people in the 2024 census. an increase of more than 30% over the previous year. This is no longer a number that reflects short-term volatility. It is describing a long-term, persistent, and deepening trend. When up to 67% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, Colorado is simply the place that most clearly shows what happens when the cost of living increases faster than a generation can adapt. When a city can spend hundreds of millions of dollars to put homeless people in hotels, but the number of homeless people is still increasing. Does the solution lie in continuing to spend more money, or in touching the structure of the market? Housing market and welfare system are increasingly unbalanced. As the journey through the 10 states closes, we see not just old RVs under bridges, not just rows of fragile tents in the middle of rich cities, but pieces of life trying to hold on to some stability. Finally, in the midst of a rapidly changing America, perhaps the scariest thing is not the increase in the number of homeless people, but the fact that the distance between with house and with house is becoming incredibly fragile. In many places, it's only as long as a bill. And when that boundary is so thin, no one feels truly safe anymore. If a bill can cause a family to fall off the roof, can we also call it economic safety? And when the hardest working people themselves live in insecurity, how will America move on? If this story makes you think of someone, or a street corner you've been to, share your thoughts below. If you find the video useful, like, share and subscribe to the channel so that we continue to bring true stories from across the United States. The video content is intended to present social trends based on public data, mainstream reporting, and actual observations. The video is not intended to hold any person, organization, or government accountable, and does not provide financial, legal, or policy advice. Figures may change over time. Viewers should consult further from official sources for a more complete picture.